Pledge to the flag. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Mr. Hendricks is stepping in. Okay.
I have a brief statement here, and then I'd ask that we just have a moment of silence. As we have concluded an extremely divisive campaign season, I would ask that we give pause to remember that we are all members of the same community, the same great country, and I ask that we all work together for the common good. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Hanlon, if you would note, all members are here except Mr. Robinson, and he certainly has an excusable absence this evening. Next will be courtesy to the floor. Courtesy to the floor is for any item that is not on the agenda tonight. Individually, you get 3 minutes to speak. As an organization, 5. I think you're on the agenda tonight.
Am I? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but you can speak. Yes.
Amber Clark, Allentown, Pennsylvania, and you are? We just wanted to come by and say thank you. Our bill SB 1098 got passed and signed by the governor on October 24th. It officially takes effect 6 months from October 24th. So PennDOT is just, they've already heard from me a couple of times. They're getting, which I'm sure you're not surprised, they're getting their ducks in a row per se, and we're going to get the ball rolling. In light of recent events this past week across the country, Indiana, Georgia, Tampa, 5 states, there were some tragedies with children's deaths regarding the school bus passing law. And City Council was where I first came last October to try to get some changes going. And y'all were also the first public entity that supported our bill in writing with the resolution of support. That little letter that you guys signed supporting our bill, me and my little band of warriors sent to all 504 school districts in the state of Pennsylvania. It was a catalyst for them. We got a lot of letters back in support of it, which we've then forwarded to the Senate and the state representatives. And I really feel that that step that y'all took and having faith in a problem and a solution that we have come up with to fix this issue in our community, that I really think helped to pass our bill. And my next project is going to be awareness around that so that we don't have Indiana and Georgia happen in Pennsylvania. So I'll be back, but I'm just here to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate it. Local government works, and I will continue to spread that message, so thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And like I said, you were on the agenda tonight.
I didn't
but
know that.
we do have a proclamation for you. And before I forget, Mr. Hanlon, if we could get one written up for Olivia too, because she wasn't as important a part of this bill or this resolution as anybody else. But let me read this for you, and then we can present it to you right away.
Thank you.
Whereas Amber Clark, a concerned parent and an advocate for school bus safety, passionately took action to promote the safety of children across Pennsylvania. And whereas Amber Clark was concerned that her 6-year-old daughter, Olivia, or another child was going to be hit by a motorist violating school bus safety laws. And whereas Amber Clark researched other states that adopted legislation allowing cameras on the outside of buses and approached City Council, the Allentown School Board, State Representative Mike Schlossberg, and other legislators, including State Senator Pat Brown, to support and/or sponsor a bill that would allow for placement of cameras on buses. And whereas Senator Pat Brown sponsored Bill 1098, amending Title 75 of the Vehicle Code of Pennsylvania Consolidated Statutes in rules of the road in general, further providing for meeting or overtaking school bus and providing for enforcement of failure to stop for a school bus with flashing red lights. And whereas the stop arm cameras would allow bus drivers with the click of a button to take time-stamped video of motorists violating school bus safety laws. And we're almost done. Whereas Amber Clark worked diligently to promote legislation that would allow school entities, the ability to install and operate a side stop signal arm enforcement system for the purpose of enforcing the provisions of section 3345, meeting or overtaking school bus. And whereas on Wednesday, October 24th, 2018, Governor Tom Wolf signed Bill 1098 that passed the General Assembly. Now therefore, Allentown City Council on Wednesday, November 7th, 2018, thanks Amber Clark for her advocacy for children and her passionate plea for stop arm cameras, which will allow bus drivers to timestamp videos of motorists violating school bus safety laws. So we would thank you. And we will let you know.
Oh, please be careful. Okay, good.
You have something to say, Olivia? You want something you want to sell to City Council? Thank you.
Mommy's the best!
And if your homework,
Mommy's the queen of buses.
The queen of buses.
if your homework's not done for school tomorrow, you tell your teachers you were a city council and we'll give you a pass. How's that?
I already did my homework.
That's a
Even better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You don't fall.
Yes, that's awesome.
Mommy, mommy,
That was awesome.
We have her come every night. Right up.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, Mr. Hirschman, try and follow that.
Well, I'm not here to thank you like she is. I'm here to thank you if you cut my taxes. And when Mr. Breaker spoke this evening, we're gonna increase my taxes. I'm glad that finally seems there, Mr. Breaker. And my concern is we have to cut the budget. There's no way people, you saw some people last week speak, they can't afford this budget. The mayor said he's going to look at amnesty and sale of land, which should help cut the cost of the budget, and I hope you guys approve it, if the mayor does approve it through, push it through. But I think there's other ways we can look to cut costs, and the mayor spoke on the raises last week on the $1 million, but in addition to the $1 million increase, you know, on the raises, city employees receive, which you, Mr. President, I knows about, is longevity and also pay grade increases. I think we have 6 or 7 pay grade increases in the budget. So I'm looking at maybe one of the things we have to look at again is get back to merit increases. When I was in city council, New York, before anybody got an increase in the increments, you had to get an approval of the merit increase, which is a charter. Somehow, the city is bypassing merit increases. Voted down in 1996 to do a charter of merit increases. We have to get back to that. If people are gonna get a pay grade increase, they have to be approved by your department head. We gotta look how we can save money. This is one of the ways we can look maybe how to save money. Get back to what the charge says, and also longevity. I mean, you deserve it, if you got the agreed to it, it's party agreement, I don't know about the supervisor agreement. But possibly we can delay for 1 year and give them all an IOU and get the money the following year, because we're looking how to save money, and maybe we can delay that for 1 year and then put back in the merit increases for city employees. And my final, since I got 48 seconds, the bond issue, I guess usually I gotta bring the bond issue forward. You voted on. Is that, the bond issue, I thought you was gonna bring the 2006 bond issue forward tonight.
I quite honestly don't even know if it's.
Well, it was last meeting, they brought, you weren't here on the last meeting, they said they were gonna bring it up, but Mr. Robinson spoke on the issue.
Yeah, I think they want to bring up the analysis or financial analysis of what the bonds would look like now.
Right.
Remember, we're discussing that, and that we changed the bond. It was supposed to be, for refinance for serious bond 2004.
This was at Monday's meeting. This was discussed, right? And I don't think we got that yet.
I don't know, did they get it? Yeah, Mr. Hutchins,
Are you gonna vote on it?
he has to bring it up, I mean, we have to bring it up, it's not in the agenda.
It's not on the agenda today.
The next agenda.
It's not on the agenda.
Okay. That'll be coming up.
And we were talking about 4, 6, and 9, the parameters. We talked about that on Monday night.
So at the next meeting, I'd like to thank you guys, people, for finding a way to cut my budget.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else courtesy of the floor?
My name is Joe Tomic. I own a business at 112 South 8th Street. It's called AAA1 Professional Block Company. I've been there for 40 years, and a locksmith for 44 years in this city. I can't park in front of my own shop. My customers cannot park and come in my shop. They can't go to the grocery store across the street from me, and they can't go to the barber shop. My vehicle, my work vehicle, is equipped with equipment to break into your house, open your safe, steal your car. That's the kind of stuff I have in my truck, and I want me to park it 2 blocks away from my shop. We've got construction at 8th and Hamilton. South 8th Street doesn't have any parking on the east side to begin with. On the west side of South 8th Street, where my shop is located, they took down from the alley all the parking meters on the left side and put in the parking signs for 6 months. So is this how the city operates? I have to deal at a financial crisis for 6 months so we can build a building over a block away and he can park wherever he wants and do whatever he wants. I went to the parking authority and I talked to the administrator of the parking authority, and she told me fine people gave her the right to do this, that I needed to come see you people. So you've got 3 businesses that have been there for over 40 years, paying taxes in this city, and I can't even park in front of my own shop. That's pretty pathetic. I've got all kinds of pictures.
What's your address, sir?
Mr. Dominic, I know exactly what you're talking
I'm gonna
about,
do something.
and it's absolutely necessary for that building to go up there.
I don't
And
doubt
it's a
that.
temporary inconvenience for a permanent improvement of the area. It's very limited with the width of the roadway. They had to do that for the construction.
I can show you pictures that's gonna blow your mind.
Well, it's not gonna blow my mind. I know exactly where you're talking about, and I'm familiar with
But you
what
don't know
problem
what they're doing, do you?
I sure do. They're putting a new building
No,
up.
no, 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 I didn't say that. You don't know whether, you don't know where they're staging trucks, where they're parking, what they're doing, correct?
I'm not watching it all day long. No, I'm not.
Okay, I've got pictures that will completely show you that from Walnut up to Hamilton Street, 2 lanes, wide open, nothing going on there, but they've got everything blocked between Walnut and Union. Why couldn't they go on in between Walnut and Hamilton? It's open,
Can you park in the garage?
pardon me,
Can you park in the garage on 9th Street?
2 blocks away?
Where else were you gonna park? Where else are you gonna park?
Well, I used to be able to park in front of my shop and put money in the meter, and I get it. I understand the city of Valentine wants to make something right, okay? But not at the expense of business taxpayers. You got 3 businesses that have been in business 40 years. You know how I spend $3,500 a month advertising to get business? Do you know how hard it is to keep business? Do you know how hard it is to get it back once it's left? It's almost impossible. Rather than park a block and a half away, 2 blocks away, who's gonna do that and walk to my shop or walk to the grocery store? Nobody. So for 6 months, I gotta take a financial hit because we wanna build a building at 8th and Hamilton with taxpayers' money and give it to somebody else? That's not right. mean, they need to, they got trucks staged on the other side of 8th Street Bridge, parked on both sides where there's no parking. They got them parked on Walnut Street. As soon as you come over the bridge on the right side, just above the school, no parking, but they're parked there. They got them on both sides of 8th Street in front of my shop, in front of the grocery store. Sorry. I mean, come on.
Mr. Mayor, maybe we could just have somebody check that out next week.
Yeah, we'll have it checked, and we'll,
See what the issue is.
we'll the parking authority also.
Okay.
I don't have an answer for it,
Yeah.
but we'll look into
Well,
it.
there's still parking on Walnut Street, I know that, in the
Yeah,
8th.
that's
Yeah,
not,
not from 8th to 7th, there isn't.
Well, right, but in the 8th to 9th there is.
Do you know how many people live there, sir?
It's permanent parking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think owning a business, you should be able to get a permit.
Maybe.
Maybe, if he's residential.
Temporary?
He's not
There's a
residential.
lot, no, I'm not.
So he might
There's a
as well
lot
not be
of
here.
apartments there. There's a lot of people that park there.
You don't live there, I say, right?
No, I have a business there. I own a building.
You're saying this is 6 months now?
It's for 6 months. It's until April.
All right, Mr. Mayor, you're gonna have the appropriate department look into that, for maybe touch
We'll look
base
into
on
it.
it.
I
All
mean,
right,
we'll talk to the parking authority and.
Thank you. See what we can do.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Don Ringrick, 101 Liberty Street, Allentown, PA.
I just want to say, Mr. Glazer, wake up. My hat's off to you, sir. If you would do this every meeting, every time, the 3 H's wouldn't have nothing to do back there.
I want to back what Mr. Hirschman just said. We cannot afford to give our city employees a 3% raise. We're basically kaput in this city right now. And there's people that are leaving this city left and right, whether any of you believe me or not, they are. And we have to keep this down as much as we can. We can't just give a 3% raise when we can't afford it. I ask you this, Mrs. Opper, before, when you were in business, you couldn't give a raise if you were going broke, could you? Okay, I can't either. I have to physically manage my business. We have to do the same thing in this city. We have to do better with this. Somebody has to have the gumption in their stomach to make the cuts that have to be made here, okay? I also want to comment on the fire with Mr. Hyman, okay? I think the city of Allentown handled this grossly wrong in the way they treated Mr. Hyman, okay? This all could have been avoided with a little conversation. I had no trouble talking to Mr. Hyman from the Arctic Ocean, okay? You apparently couldn't get a hold of him down here, and I know you apologized, okay? But the damage was done because it was in the paper, what you said. You said he lied, or you didn't believe him. You didn't believe him, and you couldn't get a hold of him. The damage was done.
Mr. Ringer, I need to interrupt you here.
Yes,
I
go ahead.
never called him a liar.
No, but you did say you didn't believe him.
No, I didn't say that either.
That was in the
I
paper.
said that I was not able to get a hold of him on those numbers, and he corrected me on it. He called me, and I will make a public apology that I did have the wrong number. I don't know how I got the wrong number, but Mr. Hyman and I settled that.
I know you did.
Publicly,
I know you
publicly,
did.
I did not call him a liar, and.
But you didn't believe him.
No, I didn't say I didn't
Okay.
believe
Well,
him. I
whatever,
just,
all right, whatever. The damage was done, it was in the newspaper. Mr. Hyman actually is a developer here in this city that has developed a lot of properties, put them back on the tax rolls here in this city. I don't think anybody here can deny that, okay? And if, Mr. Riley had a fire, he wouldn't have been treated the same way as Mr. Hyman was. I'm sorry, I don't agree, and Mr. Hyman's costs now are $150,000 to get this thing cleaned up. Where is this 1.2 million that we needed? Can you explain it to me, Ray?
It's on Bill 74, we're talking about it tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't need $1.2 million for this. 150,000.
Stay until Bill 74 comes out, and we'll talk about all that tonight.
I think the situation was grossly mishandled by Allentown. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for courtesy of the floor?
Hello, Councilman. I handed out
something I wrote up today by hand. I didn't have time to type it up, but it's extremely important. I'd like to just preface my remarks by saying, I believe all the elected officials should go to the pension board meeting on November 20th at 9 o'clock in the morning. If that's possible, because this is a very important matter. Anyway, I appeared before City Council, I believe sometime in July. Then the city's pension board on August 21st, at your suggestion, to talk about what I'm going to talk about now. I want to help the city avoid a potential major financial crisis, which would make all your current financial challenges look tame. No one's talking about what I'm about to say. We've just gone through a 9.5-year bull market in the stock market. Highs were reached in late August in the NASDAQ index, and in late September and 1st of October in the S&P 500 index and the Dow. Many stocks have tripled in value since the last bear market bottomed in March of 2009. Now, this is critically important. 68% of the city's combined pension fund, police, fire, and other municipal workers currently is invested in the stock market. 68%. In the next bear market, which will happen, and which could take anywhere from 1.5 to 4 years based on the most previous bear markets, the market value of the stock market could drop 50% or more. A 50% drop would translate into the combined pension fund value dropping about 1/3 in value, or roughly $100 million, which in turn would increase the city's combined pension fund unfunded liability by $100 million overnight. Once this happens, you cannot assume that the stock market will quickly recover from its bear market bottom. Case in point, Japan's Nikkei index, which today is still only 55% of its value at the end of 1989, its historic high of 40,000 almost 30 years ago. Therefore, the city would be forced, if this happened, the city would be forced to dramatically increase taxes and or lay off workers. If the entire extra $100 million in unfunded liability were to be covered by an increase in the city's property tax alone, that would be the equivalent of about 15 times the current proposed increase in the property tax to cover 7.6 million. Or the equivalent of increasing property taxes by $3,540 per year on a homeowner whose house is assessed at $150,000 and land is assessed at $20,000. This would have the effect of a very large number of older residents with fixed incomes losing their homes to foreclosure or being forced to sell their homes at lower prices due to duress.
Mr.
And large-
if you could give us a synopsis of this, we have it.
I know, I want everybody to hear this. It's only gonna take, this is gonna go pretty fast.
It hasn't been so far, but, and I think the proper thing to do is address this to the pension board, not city council, but whatever.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Is it okay if we just only
Hurry up.
have?
Hurry up.
Okay. And a large number of middle income and upper income residents, it would result in, that is, selling their homes and leaving the city due to their city property taxes based on $300,000 to $450,000 homes in value. Their property taxes increasing to $10,000 per year. The city is already not competitive with its surrounding communities in terms of the local EIT, the earned income tax, which is double the surrounding townships and boroughs, and the Allentown School District's property tax rate, which is significantly higher for the same priced homes. This would result in dramatic declining home values and a dramatic decline in the city's tax base, people moving out, selling and moving out. And there would be no water and sewer lease deal to bail out the city. The Federal Reserve has made it clear that it is going to continue to raise short-term interest rates with a number of 1/4 point increases starting next month, December, and throughout 2019. This will have an adverse effect on housing and autos, along with companies and individuals subject to floating interest rates on their loans and debt. Keep in mind also that many corporations have propped up their own stock prices by buying their own stock using money they borrowed at near zero interest rates, which they now have to pay back with rising interest rates. It will also result in an inverted yield curve, almost always followed by recessions. All right, solutions. Don't try to.
Mr. Ingram, I left you go.
Okay.
The proper place to
You get a
address
picture.
this, excuse me, the proper place to address this is at the pension board, as you announced to everybody here. Council does not decide where the money gets invested, the pension board does, okay?
True,
We
but
hear
I
you,
went to the
you
August
understand.
21st meeting and you're on the board.
I know I'm on the board.
Mr. McLean, you're on the board.
I know, I'm
And you
aware I'm on the
weren't
board.
there. You weren't there.
Yes, I know, I wasn't there because I didn't get the email, so,
You weren't there.
Mr. Ingram.
We can breathe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying you need to be there to help make the decision to become possible.
Be there. I missed one pension board meeting.
Oh, okay. That's
Thank
all I
you.
wanted to- okay. If you can understand how,
Mr. Ingram. Come to the pension board.
I will. I'll come.
Thank you.
Would you like me to have this typed up?
I can read it. I read it.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Glenn Hunsicker, South Allentown. I'd just like to get a clarification on this $30 million bond proposal. Are you gonna resubmit that to council with all the details so we can go over the new numbers? Or what? Where are we at here? I know Mookie's talked about it, but I didn't hear exactly what the answer was. So, for the record, what are we doing?
If we're proceeding with this question, I'm going to defer to Mr. Holder first of all, and then I will add some additional comments as necessary.
Is there a specific question for council? That's what I need to know.
No, it sounds like it's more for the administration.
My question, are you guys asking us a question?
No.
Can I just
Well,
clarify?
I can rephrase my question.
Wait a minute.
The clarification is, if the bond analysis, financial analysis that was presented before for 4 bonds, and now we're only doing 2, right? If that resolution would be sufficient to change, to do 2 and changing the actual amount that we initially approved, or do we need a new resolution?
Okay. Yes, I will answer that question. So,
Let me ask, can I add one thing? It's not just the bond, the amount, it's also the percentages in the bond, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
the whole pro forma they did.
Okay.
I believe this is an ordinance, it was a funding ordinance, it's called parameters ordinances. There's 2 ways we do you can do funding borrowing. There's a parameters ordinance, which we did, and then there's the, what's been done in the past is an old way where the actual funding amounts were put in the ordinance. What a parameters ordinance is it sets maximum rates. If you were to look at the ordinance and you were to go to Exhibit B of the ordinance, it's the parameters of the ordinance. You can borrow up to this amount, up to these interest rates. In addition to this one, there was the refunding package, which is ones that weren't done yet. And I stress yet for a reason. If you read section 5 of the ordinance, the council hereby accepts the proposal, i.e. Exhibit B, what we're looking to refund as the administration set forward. And the bonds are awarded to the underwriters under the condition herein in accordance with the proposal. The mayor or vice mayor of the city, that's standard language based on our bond council, upon recommendation of the director of finance and the financial advisor, is hereby authorized to review and approve the final terms and conditions of each issuance of the bonds. So this ordinance, each approval going forward was meant to be separate. It was not a package deal. And the reason why I'll explain, if you skip down the line, provided that such bonds are within the bond parameters, as Mr. Greedy said, and it's right, these things have to be within it. The recommendations are made once that's done. And lastly, as related to the refinancing packages, or excuse me, refunding projects, at such time as required savings are achieved. This ordinance not only anticipated there might not be that savings, it anticipated that savings might not be gotten yet. So the fact that they haven't proceeded on the refunding projects, it doesn't mean it's not going to get done.
Is the limit in that ordinance, I don't have it in front of me, is that 4%, one of those, is that?
5%, I think.
5?
It was probably 5 or 6%, I don't have it in front of me.
It was at least 5%, and we didn't go that high with the 2006 issue.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Johnson?
I think so. I just have to reread that ordinance.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Yes.
Compound East Side. I have here a copy of 2013. And in there, in the budget, they talk about having the citizens of Allentown having enough money to pay down the debt that the state or someone has to rule, because I talked to the solicitor before to try to get this information and not have to bring it up now, but in the light of that, the vote's coming, so that when the debt and the budget matches a point where the citizens can't pay it off, then it's almost a bankruptcy, and so what ratio, who knows what ratio we are in the debt to budget that we can actually pay off any additional bonds that we're gonna take off if the budget and the debt ratio are the same. I'm just saying, you have $100 million in debt and you have $100 million budget, there's no money to pay down the debt. So I think that should be answered before you, tabling this might be the answer, but the questions that are coming up, I think are really technical, is how you would pay down the debt we have, plus the debt that's gonna come up, and only pay on the interest and never pay on the principal. So I don't have the answer. Scott didn't have the answer. If someone has the answer, I don't think we should vote on it until we have the answer. How we ever gonna get it?
I'm not voting on it.
Are you talking
It's not even on the agenda today.
I just ask a question, are you talking about the debt,
The total debt.
the debt, service fund? I mean, it's included in the budget.
I mean, all the things that we're indebted to, whether it's capital or whatever, bonds or whatever it is, or the ratio.
Yeah.
That assumes that we're paying $100 million in debt service in 1 year to cover the $100 million in revenues that we get, which is not true. also assumes that we're only paying interest, which is also not true, and I would point council to page 347 of their big budget to indicate in the debt service fund exactly how, beginning on that page and then on the pages that immediately follow it, how much we are scheduled to pay off both in principal and interest on all of our existing debt from now in through the 2030s. It's all perfectly right there in black and white, transparency, you can all see it.
Got that, Mr. Hunt?
No, I'm back in 2013. This is 2013.
Well, then you got us all over the barrel because nobody else here has a 2013 budget.
Mr. Vaughn has the CAFR,
Oh,
which
okay.
no one also has.
Well, I think Mr. Hartz will explain it. Black and white on page, what'd you say, 347?
Beginning on page 347 in the summary book, the big book.
Okay.
And you can see it for the next few pages thereafter, the series of how we are paying off principal and interest on each of our debt issues on an annual basis going into the 2040s.
Okay. Thank you. Page 347 of this year's budget. This is where it starts, Mr. Hunt. Anybody else from the public, courtesy of the floor?
James Smith, 1122 Hamilton Street. I wish that the tax increase wasn't so dramatic. It's definitely gonna be a little bit of a stretch for us to cover the increase, but, you know, I think the idea that we could have a city with these parks, and with these services, that's this beautiful, and for 13 years, not have any tax hike on property tax. I think you're living in a fantasy world. I think that it's a good wake-up call to get this tax increase, and, you know, I think that, that we need to focus on getting the message out a little bit better, that not every house in Allentown is worth $150,000. The people who are most concerned about the financial impact that this is gonna have on them, those lower income people, a lot of them live in houses like mine at the corner of 6th and Oak that we just sold. That was worth $46,000. That was assessed at $46,000. We're talking about $7 a month. But then our building on Hamilton Street that's assessed at about $150,000 a month. We're making improvements on that building, and we hope to rent it out for a good amount, a couple $1,000s for our retail spaces there. And I think that, you know, like I said, it's a good wake-up call for people to know that these tax increases should have been happening over a large period of time, and it's kind of like ripping the Band-Aid off now. But the responsible property owners of this city are not the only ones that need a wake-up call. At the corner of 6th and Oak, where we owned our house, I think that a lot of people in that neighborhood need a wake-up call too. That 1 block away from $1 billion of investment is not the place to put your garbage out every single night of the week, to destroy your house as a tenant, and then try to hold your landlord accountable for all of that. To take shopping carts home and push them over and use them like love seats in front of your house. To argue at 3 o'clock in the morning about who did crack first. That's a real story. And I have a feeling they both did crack first. There's a lot of people in Allentown that need a bit of a wake-up call. We need a bit of a push to realize that, you know, it's not all doom and gloom. We like to see, with our property tax increases, an increase in the quality of life. And we want to find ways to tax bad behavior. And if we can outline as a city how we're going to tax bad behavior through our fees, through our sweep tickets, through holding the Allentown Parking Authority task a little bit so they stay a little later, so they write a few more double parking tickets. If we can figure out how to tax those bad behaviors, the people who are responsible property owners like myself, we're gonna feel a lot better about the taxes that we have to pay on our properties. And if you're out there and you have a building that's worth $150,000 and you're really worried about this tax increase, invest in your building a little bit. Invest in your building and increase the rent a little. And your tenants are gonna feel good about that too, because now they're in a better place. And hopefully they're gonna treat it with a little respect. So I really commend the mayor for having the guts to do this year. A lot of people thought that he wouldn't until after his reelection. I think that this is a good thing for the city, and I think that the discourse up here is really healthy, and I look forward to hearing how your ideas for how we're going to tax bad behavior and how we're going to raise the quality of life with this tax increase. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else courtesy of the floor? Seeing nobody, Mr. Hanlon, approval of minutes, can we do that by common consent? Yep. Okay. Any old business? Any communications? Proclamation, we did that out of order, but it was well worth it. We have someone? All right. Okay, go ahead, all right. Ms. Hopper has a proclamation to read the.
Mr. Robinson asked me to read this proclamation. I think we all knew Daryl Merrill. He covered our city council, he covered Bethel. I met him when he did my bio for, when I was running for council. And he was a very sweet man, a very bright man, and he passed away October 28th. So Mr. Robinson asked, we have a proclamation from the city. I'd like to read it right now. Whereas Daryl C. Nerrell, the only child of Norman and Diane Nerrell, was born in Brooklyn, New York on October 31st, 1966, passed away on October 28th, 2018. And whereas Daryl C. Nerrell graduated from John Dewey High School and went to New York University on an academic scholarship, earned a bachelor's degree in 1988. And whereas Daryl C. Nerrell was in pre-med before joining the NYU newspaper staff and becoming a journalist. And whereas Daryl C. Nerrell reported for the Pottsville Republican, the Scranton Times, the Morning Call, Patch.com, and other news outlets and colleges. And whereas Daryl C. Nerrell covered Bethel, Allentown City Halls, and other beats with Allentown City Hall coverage beginning from 2001 through 2005. And whereas Daryl C. Nerrell was known as a beautiful writer with a passion for journalism, politics, music, baseball, with his beloved team, the New York Mets. And whereas being quick to call out racism, injustice outraged Daryl C. Nerrell when he spoke against any attempts to demonize immigrants and the poor. And whereas Daryl C. Nerrell loved animals and took in cats even though he was allergic to them. Now therefore, Allentown City Council on November 7, 2018 sends condolence to the Daryl C. Nerrell's family, friends, colleagues, and all who loved and admired him for their loss, as we celebrate his passion for journalism, politics, music, and baseball. Is there anyone here from his family that would take this proclamation? If not, we'll probably send it to his family now.
All right, thank you. Is there another one or not?
That was
Yes. Okay. All right, that's it for proclamation. Reports from committees. There will be a special budget meeting. The next budget meeting will take place on Wednesday, November 14th. Will be human resources, and the non-departmental offices will be reviewed along with the general and civic budget. All right, reports from committees. Budget and finance. Mr. Garrido.
Sorry. The committee met Monday. I apologize.
Committee met on October 24th and forwarded an item for tonight's agenda.
Okay.
The next meeting is not yet scheduled. Thank you very much, Mr. Garrido. Community and Economic Development. Mr. Robinson is not here, so I'll take that one too. The committee met on Monday, the next meeting has not been scheduled. Human Resources Administration appointments. Ms. Hoppe, you're here.
The committee has not met since the last council meeting. The next meeting has not yet been scheduled.
Thank you very much. Parks and Recreation, Ms. Moda.
Thank you. The committee has not met since the last council meeting. The next meeting has not been scheduled. That was really fast.
Thank you very much. Public Safety, Mr. Hendricks.
Thank you, Mr. President. Committee met earlier this evening to discuss bill number 73. No further meetings are scheduled at this time.
Thank you very much. Public Works, Mr. Zuko.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee met this evening, discussed Bill 72, which is basically changing some temporary traffic regulations to permanent ones. The next meeting has not yet been scheduled.
Okay, and I get to go again. Rules, Chambers, Intergovernmental Relations and Strategy, that's me, and the committee has not met since the last meeting, and there is no meeting scheduled at this time. Mr. Glazer, again, we get you.
You know, I would look at it as a positive, quite honestly.
I love that smile.
I mean, I have 3 audits. In the interest of time, we're gonna do 2. I'll save the other one for 2 weeks. Real quick, the August bank reconciliation was done in a hair over 60 days, so I certainly commend finance for making good progress, for coming down the curve. I don't know when the next one's gonna be done, but we're certainly getting into the pink. Very good. One issue, there's still a couple of checks that were not voided on the bank's void checklist, which is the ARP, and I know they continue to work on that. The other audit I want to discuss tonight is called a blanket purchase order compliance audit. Blanket purchase orders like Parks and Rec may have them for, like, say, Albright's hardware store for $500. We know we're gonna need things, and it makes it easy for the departments to go out and get what they need in small dollar amounts. Though I will say that those kinds of purchase orders are really a thing of the past, because the Treasury and Finance have instituted a P-card program, which should do away with most of that. But there are also blank purchase orders over $3,999 that are not going away. And what we determined is that those purchase orders need to have price agreements with them. Blanket purchase orders with price agreements are regular blanket orders in which the unit price of the items or services are agreed upon with the vendor for a stated period of time. Blanket purchase orders for services or particular items that are greater than $3,999.99 must have a price agreement, and that's from a January 3rd, 2017 memo from the purchasing agent to all department heads. And per the codified ordinance, all contracts, change orders, and leases shall be on file in the office of the city controller and shall be available for public inspection during normal business hours. So we wanted to see what the compliance was with these purchase orders. The audit was conducted in accordance with generally accepted governmental auditing standards and utilized an approach that included reviews of Eden and the controller's files and the website. We generated a listing of 2018 blank purchase orders that were greater than $3,999, and our findings are. We reviewed 103 blank purchase orders over that $3,999.99 and noted that 58 of them, or 56.3%, had no evidence of a contract or pricing agreement. Of the 58, 51.7% referenced the price agreement, but no price agreement could be located in Eden or in the controller's files. We recommended all those blank purchase orders over that dollar amount have contracts and price agreements as required. The administration agrees with the finding. In 2019, the purchasing department will ensure that price agreements for all requests for pricing quotes bids are documented in a standard format. The blanket purchase order will specifically reference the pricing agreement, and the pricing agreement will be attached as backup to all blanket purchase orders. There are also a number of these that were not available in the controller's files, 89.3% of them, as a matter of fact. We recommend that all these be forwarded to the controller's office as required by the codified ordinance, and the administration responds. They're in agreement with the finding, and we will work with them to show them what blank purchase orders we need agreements for, and we look forward to their cooperation. And, you know, all these things, keep a paper file, and the rest go up on the website for public inspection. And this is doubly important because when we review checks on Fridays, having the pricing agreement there makes it much easier for us to determine whether the pricing on a blank purchase order is in accordance. This evening we spoke about porta potties, and I know they're kind of mundane, gave us, we do $8,000 for the business with them. Probably should have had a pricing agreement. There was a price increase in the middle of the year. We wouldn't have had to pay for that, more than likely, if we would have had a price agreement. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Glazer, and they're not mundane if you need them.
Ain't that the truth?
You finished, sir?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, President Payne. As Veterans Day is approaching, just a little message from the entire administration. Veterans Day is our annual opportunity to thank veterans for their service. At observances across the country, Americans will acknowledge that the contributions of veterans to our national security are greatly appreciated. I attended a veterans ceremony at Mosen Elementary School this afternoon. The kids were fantastic. They had probably 25 veterans that they honored, and see the pride in their eyes. Some Korean War, Vietnam War, Afghanistan. It was a great ceremony. The kids were great. It was about an hour ceremony. They were very attentive, but I think the touching moment when the two Gold Star mothers came up and gave their message to the children. She had to explain what a Gold Star mother was, and the kids were very attentive that, you know, these are two mothers that lost their children, you know, in combat in Afghanistan. So obviously they sacrificed and done their duty. We pray for the safety of our troops every day. We pray that our leaders make the right decisions for our national security. I mean, if you look at the Afghanistan war, I think we're pushing probably 16, 18 years over there. It's kind of, and the bottom line is, the people that have served on land and overseas, 3 words that should ring loudly as you go to sleep at night and wake up in the morning. It's called duty, honor, and country. Those 3 hollow words dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, and what you won't be. And I salute all the veterans in Allentown and all over the nation for Veterans Day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and agreed by all I would say. Okay, we have two appointments. Safi, you want to take those?
Yes, we do. We have an appointment, 2 appointments tonight, one for Human Relations Commission, that would be Cheryl Johnson Watts. She'll be there till 12/31/2019. Do I have any comments from my colleagues? Comments? Any comments from the public? Oh, I'm sorry, Cynthia.
I would like to say that I see Mrs. Watts in many of the events. She's everywhere. She's a great asset to the community. She loves children, and I'm happy that, that she's serving.
Anyone else?
I would just add that she has great patience also. Ever since the beginning of the meeting. Not at least. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'd like to make a comment, if I can.
Anybody for the public? Oh, Mr. Mayor?
No, I've known Cheryl Johnson Watts over the last several years. She obviously is a well-respected person in Allentown, is a great asset, I believe a great asset to the Allentown School Board. And she is at everything. You know, if I'm there, I turn around, she's there, if she turns around, I'm there. But I mean, I know you're at, where is she? But she is the Allentown School Board's, you know, person that will represent the Allentown School Board and the Human Relations Commission. And she'll do a fine job, there's no doubt. You couldn't have a better person on the Human Relations Commission.
Yes, we're good. I'd also like to echo that she's a very smart person, easygoing. Also, I think she can take a problem and find a solution for it. So I'm looking forward to seeing her do it in the Human Relations Commission.
Anyone else? Ms. Watts, would you like to come up and say a few words? And I echo everyone else. Oh, we have to prove it first. I'm sorry. Everybody, I thought it was approved already. Now, who's gonna say no around here?
Okay, Ms. Effa?
Yes.
Reading?
Yes.
Henry?
Yes.
Mona?
Yes.
Mr. Zuko?
Yes.
Yes.
Congratulations. And would you like to come up and say a few words?
First, I just want to say good evening to everyone, and thank you, Mayor O'Connell, and thank you to my colleagues on the Allentown School Board of Directors, as well as to each and every one of you who voted for my confirmation, and Ishmael Arcelay for the education on what it means to be a part of the Human Relations Commission. I am honored by the opportunity to serve in this capacity. There is nothing greater than restoring human dignity for whatever reason it needs to be restored. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Congratulations. And the second one, this is a familiar guy. This is the Housing Authority. It's Mr. Julio Guarini for the Allentown Housing Authority. 11/05/20, be there to 23.
Probably.
I think so.
Maybe not.
All right, could I have any comments from my colleagues? Be kind, please.
We'll be kind to him, I won't say
Anybody from the public? Oh,
I'll make a comment.
Okay.
How long have you been on the Housing Authority?
I'm not sure.
Pretty long. And this is a reappointment, and Julio does a great job on the Housing Authority, and I hope it gets approved.
I just wanted to thank Cheryl Johnson Watts and Julio for their service. It's been a total pleasure getting to know Julio, and Cheryl Johnson Watts have had just like that much of an interaction with her, and it's enough to get it and go, wow, it's not just about being at every event, it's about what she brings to every event, and it's potent, and it's palpable, and it's really, really an honor. And what I would love from both of you, and from really everybody who serves here, is the opportunity to learn. There's a lot of people like myself who would like to serve their community in a better capacity. I would love to learn how to do that, because I never have. And so I would just love to continue to get to know you guys, and thank you for your service to our community, and look forward to learning how to do that.
You just apply.
Yeah.
It's easy as that.
We just need a resume, that's it.
One of James said, one of the commitments I made, we had so many vacancies and openings on the authorities, boards, and commissions. And one of my first tasks when I became the mayor was to start filling those, because community involvement, and James, I'll call you, we'll sit down, we got zoning, maybe it's open, we got disruptive conduct board, we got nuisance abatement boards, we got a lot of things, but I'll call you. I would love to have you involved.
Yeah, and it's not just about like, I know how to fill out the application, but what it's really about.
That's a good start.
But I think that like serving hopefully leads to leading.
Yeah.
And these guys get it, and I don't think leadership is something that you learn overnight, and I think that everybody benefits from your example of service, so thank you guys.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Klein Sicker, 19th and Island. Julio, congratulations.
You haven't voted yet.
But I do like to say this in future for authorities and boards. We have too much complacency. We have too many, we need some term limits on those boards and authorities. We need to, I think the directors of these agencies tend to get complacent, and the boards get complacent with them. So we need to change that in the future. I know, Mr. Mayor, you have some power in selecting people that reside on those boards. But once again, you will probably get confirmed, Julio. So congratulations. But I do want to talk to you off the record sometime.
Anytime.
So, and I know we will have a meeting coming up with board members from the Housing Authority. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay. So who would take the vote, Mr. Hanlon?
Ms. Zappa?
Yes.
Mr. Grady?
I recused myself, yeah. I can't.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. McLean.
You want me to vote? I guess I'll be. Just be a rebel.
Can I just say something?
Sure.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Hamlin. We have a 6-0 vote. Okay. I'm sure. I'm fine.
Yeah, Mr. Robinson didn't go.
Oh, you didn't vote?
Mr. Robinson did.
No, I don't need it, but I thought you voted for
No,
yourself.
no,
The meeting's back to me. Go ahead, Julio, we want to say.
Thank you. I just want to say that it is an honor serving in the Housing Authority, and through my tenure there, we do a lot of things. One of the things we did is, and I would just say, major issues that we've done, is we took Hanover Acres, which was the oldest housing project in the country, and we turned it into a beautiful overlook park where it's a mixed income housing area now. Beautiful place. If you haven't been there, please try to take a drive over there. There's also a community building that houses children there every day, and the Penn State University also has a couple of offices there. But in addition to that, we took Cumberland Garden and we rehab all the units there. And now they have a beautiful place. They have central air. They have washer and dryer in there, and he said it's actually both of these housing projects were, especially Hanover Acres, was the highest crime in the city came out of there. Now it's the lowest, so that's really a testament to what can happen in our city. And we do have those. We have about 100 and something scattered site properties, and we've done really well with them. But we also have number of buildings, high risers, including towers east, tower west over on 13th and Allen. And we have Little Lehigh, which is in process of, we're working on it to kind of rehab that as well. We're probably gonna tear it down and rebuild. And we have another project that we have that hasn't done very well yet, but we're working on it, is the rebuilding, which is 7th and Linden, and we're gonna do something with that building as well. Not telling you yet what it is, but we're gonna build some more housing. We're part of the 5th and Turner, Sacred Heart building that was just built, brand new. And so people are living in beautiful housing, decent housing, and I think our seniors deserve that. We house our seniors in most of those high risers, and we keep them up, maintain them, and it's not easy. But I'm the treasurer of the Housing Authority budget, and we're doing pretty good, by the way, this year. And employees over there as well.
We have 176 scattered units in the city.
176 now, yeah. There you go. Thank you. Sorry.
Julio, I just want to say thank you too, and I know we joke a lot of times too, but this is for real. Mr. Hanlon, next time he speaks, start the timer.
I don't want to speak much anymore.
All right, Bill 72, please, Mr. Hanlon.
Bill 72, amends the traffic control map of the city. Request comes from the administration, and the administration is authorized to establish and evaluate traffic regulations for a temporary period not to exceed 90 days. This legislation will make those temporary things permanent.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zuko. I believe this was your committee?
Yes.
Recommended favorably?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any input from my colleagues? Anybody from the public? Seeing nobody, Mr. Hanlon?
Mr. Greedy?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Ms. Moda?
Yes.
Mr. Zuko?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Ms. Savage?
Yes.
Mr. President, 6 yeas, no nays.
Thank you very much. Bill 73, please.
Bill 73 amends the general fund budget and the equipment fund budget to provide for a supplemental appropriation of $500,000 as a result of a grant from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Initiative program to the Allentown Fire Department to provide for hazmat first responder truck and hazmat chemical ID.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hendricks, I believe this was yours.
Yes, it was, Mr. President, and this was a unanimous vote by the committee to go before the full board for a positive vote.
Thank you very much. Anything else from my colleagues? Anything else from the public? Administration, I'd like to knock you out if you want to. Okay, seeing nobody, Mr. Hanlon, vote please.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
And Ms. Moda?
Yes.
Mr. Zuko?
Yes.
Mr. Blaine?
Yes.
Ms. Napa?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Bill 74, please.
Bill 74 amends the general fund budget by transferring $884,000 from various accounts from the general fund, amending the risk fund by transferring $366,000 from the appropriate balance for the emergency demolition of 418 Woodford Franklin Street. The total amount of this transfer equals $1,250,000.
Okay, and Solicitor, if I can get a little bit of clarification here, we have a motion to be made on this. Should that be read at this point in time and we go from there?
That is if the person who wants to make the motion wants to make the motion.
I'll
yes.
make such a motion to move this favorably for a full vote.
As appears on the
As it
agenda.
appears, yes. That's right.
You'd only need a motion if you were looking to amend it.
Yeah. And we decided that we were gonna amend it to a lower amount, right? We had to do.
Well, it's on there, and Mr. Hendricks just made the motion to do that.
So how about if I read the amendment?
Well, let's read the amendment.
Okay, so, the motion is to, that the transfer and payment for the demolition costs not to exceed $200,000, that the money be transferred from the following accounts, 0000206, 02001, 90 refunds at $150,000, and 0206, 02, 0003, 50 other services and charges, and that would be $50,000, and that the title of the bill be changed, and all the other accounts be removed from the bill and be restored to their original funding, and amend section 6 that read that all ordinances inconsistent with the above provision are repealed to the extent of their inconsistency. Ordinance 15484 is hereby repealed in its entirety. That was the bill that passed before, as an emergency ordinance.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Hendricks.
On that motion, before we vote,
We're not voting, we need a second first.
Yeah.
We need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay. Now we can talk.
I thought we said we were gonna return that to the general fund. The inappropriate, you know, say that?
That's your call, if you want to, the administration, on one.
No, but not the administration, Bill, our bill.
Okay, you asked them for the.
My motion was for it to be put in the, in fact, we talked about that with, Mr. Nelson, and now it's changed.
So then, if you want to do that.
Because I wanted to put it in the Brooks budget.
Oh, so I would say that if Mr. Reedy wants to do that, you would just add an amendment onto this section that doesn't restore the accounts to their original accounts, but restores it to the unappropriated balance.
That's what we said, because I initially wanted to put it in the, risk management fund, hoping that our bond will go back up. And then I was advised by Mr. Herzog that, the bond will go back up. If we put it, it would be more beneficial to put it in the general fund or an appropriate, I guess the general fund.
I think Mr. Herzog can speak to it.
Yeah, so please let me know what the deal is.
Yes, and we spoke exactly to that point, Mr. Greedy, and this afternoon or this morning when we were communicating with Mr. Hanlon about how exactly to best do this, there were a couple of approaches to take, and we're certainly amenable to doing it in more detail as you would accept. The way that the amendment is currently drafted, we would take two particular items that are in the finance department budget and would use that appropriation to pay for the demolition. The remainder of the bill, or the amendment as it is currently set up, would return all of the other monies back to the, not only to the risk management fund, but also to the individual accounts in the general fund that voluntarily gave those up. And there is a need in about half of the cases to still utilize that money. I would say that it's very likely that even if those monies are going to be coming back into the general fund to the individual categories, there's a good chance that most of that is not going to get spent. I think the departments have been very clear about what items they really still need out of that, and I would not expect that they're actually going to spend in many of those cases the appropriations that they have. So I think your intention is going to be achieved. If you want, though, to go into the individual items from the last resolution, and we do have a list out of that would be, that we would suggest would need to come back to the individual accounts. Then take the 200,000 and take the remainder of what's left, and which there would be, back into the unencumbered balance of the general fund. We can do it that way. We were looking for a simple way to achieve what you were aiming to do, but we can do it in more detailed fashion.
Yeah, thank you. And the reason why I wanted to do that is because, first of all, they already have committed to giving out this funding, this extra money that they probably didn't really need, or even if they needed it, they were gonna live without it. Right. Okay? So, and I don't know, I like to save money. And I said this before, if we put it in there, then it's gonna be spent again. If we put it back to their account, it's gonna be spent again. Now, you just said that most of our money will probably not be spent.
It is not my expectation that it would be. I have a couple of examples from my own department. We took out several $1,000s when we were hastily trying to put this together, in which monies that we would be using to put liens on properties before the year is over, and which we're intending on generating additional revenue from them.
We have money for that.
No, we took, unintentionally, we took a little extra out of that particular category, and we didn't leave ourselves with enough to do the remainder of the lien filings for the year. That's one example, but there were other examples that came back from the individual departments, and I would say, yes, they voluntarily gave that up in the expectation that we were dealing with a $1.25 million issue, but in about half of the cases, in about $400,000 worth of the cases, the departments actually do have a use for that money for the remainder of the year and would benefit from being able to carry out their responsibilities. They'd already given up a significant amount of their appropriation via the malware issue, and they dug in again to do what was necessary, presuming we were going to spend $1.25 million, but that was not, it was voluntary, but with gritted teeth. In a lot of cases.
So, I wanna make sure that we save as much money as we can. That's my goal on this. And I don't wanna give back all of it to the individual accounts where they came from if we don't have to. And I think part of what we said before was that one of the reasons why the analysts lowered our bonds, especially the S&P, was because we didn't have enough reserve.
Okay. I wanted to clarify, but you're right, because we didn't have enough reserve. I agree with you, yes.
So,
but the structural imbalance is actually the biggest issue with the bonds. I'm sorry, with the bond agencies. It's a structural, that is the.
Well, in general, yes.
It is the issue. They look at the economy of Allentown and they say, yeah, we're impressed with the changes. It is the structural deficit that makes them apprehensive.
I got you. So, are you saying, how much are you saying that we should leave in here? We should return back about $400,000?
About $400,000, yes.
Okay, so I agree to that. The rest of it is gonna be put in the general fund.
What would then happen is we would still spend $200,000 on the demolition, and then whatever's left over out of the 884, which would be $284,000, we would put back in the unencumbered balance of the general fund.
Hold on. Not being working. So you said $200 to spend.
Yeah.
$200 to bank.
284 would go back to the bank. I mean, it would go to the cash balance.
Okay, so that's.
About 400 would go to pay what needs to be paid for appropriations the rest of the year.
Okay, so that's.
And we would make the risk management fund whole, since we took 366 from there, we want to put that back in the risk management.
Okay.
That's
I'm
what
okay with
the
that.
rest of it is,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
that wasn't clear.
It was just, I didn't get the 366 when that was gonna go.
There you go, thank you.
Good, thank you.
Okay. You want to say something, but Mr. Greedy, you're okay with the way the amendment is to the bill, or not?
Yeah.
No,
No.
I think they're gonna give us some accounts to transfer the money to the unappropriated balance, right?
Okay, but we've got an amendment on the floor that we have to vote yea or nay on, correct, Mr. Solicitor?
Well, can I make?
Hang on, wait a minute, hang on a minute, let me get an answer from the solicitor.
Yes, you would have to vote on it unless someone were to table this bill and amendment until such time as the accounts are further flushed out.
I think we can vote. I think we can vote on it, but with the amendment, with the understanding that you're gonna put exactly how we said, right? Okay.
I actually have the detail in where it would be coming from and where it would be returning to right here.
All right. So the 366 is gonna go.
Back to the risk management fund, yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Hoffman, you wanted to say something?
Sorry.
Yeah,
Complicated.
now that he agrees with the amendment, I was an argument point that I agree with Mr. Hartzell that some of the money is going back to the departments that did allow us to borrow money from them. But since he agrees now, nothing much to say.
Okay. So,
Yeah, I know. He knows what he's gonna do. And I know what he's gonna do. So,
Is that an amendment? I'm confused.
yeah, the
Okay, are we
amendment.
having an amendment, yes or no?
There is an amendment.
It's seconded, it's still open for discussion.
There is an amendment. It is an amendment as it is written here on the agenda. That was the first amendment made by, or motion was made by Mr. Hendricks and seconded by Ms. Affa. As I understand it, there's no further request for amendment.
That's what I understand also. And I just wanted to make sure with Mr. Greedy, before we did proceed, the administration has spoken, now we'll open it to the public. I just asked.
I just said so.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you wanted to say something. I'm sorry, Mr. Zuko.
Yes, I'm sorry, yeah, I do want to say something. Have a seat, it might take a couple minutes.
Thank you for your kindness.
No problem. On October 10th, right here in this chambers, we were approached, city council was approached with a bill for $1.25 million to tear down someone else's property, okay? Matter of fact, the same paper that Mr. Parsons talked about involved 48 accounts, ranging from $1,000 to $150,000, totaling the 884. And the other 366 was from the risk fund. We were questioned about it, not properly given answers as far as ultimate bids, whatever, this was the amount that was given. And obviously, it was the amount that was agreed upon because they went to the extreme to gather all this money to pay for the 1.25 million. Second to that is that Mr. Greedy offered to have us just accept $884,000 at the time. And there was a big outcry, nope, we need the 1.25 million so we don't have to come back to you. Okay, so we voted and they got the 1.25 million. On October 17th, Mr. Hyman appeared here for a check with $217,325, offering to take the whole issue off our hands. Clean, done. No more 1.25 million. Taxpayers don't have to worry about paying anything. Didn't accept it. October 19th, there's a meeting with some of the administrators, some of the city council, not all city council, however, we were required to, or asked to vote on the 1.25 million. Matter of fact, Mr. Woolver, you're in charge of budget and finance. Were you there?
I didn't go to the, I wouldn't even know about it, quite frankly.
Okay. So, as you saw in the paper, the city agreed to continue tearing the building down. After the owner of the property said he would take the responsibility, the city said they would continue to tear it down. Okay, so now we're at, oh, by the way, when he appeared here on October 17th, he gave us the actual plan, the cost that it would cost him to do that job. His property, not the city's, his.
still, apparently no one can get a hold of him. With Mr. McLean's permission, I said, may I call Mr. Hyman, please? Yes, you may. I was able to get a hold of him. No one ever called him. I was told there were some emails, that's fine. Okay, negotiations 101. If you want to communicate with someone, talk to them. That's how you do it, okay? Now, I spoke to him today. He has advised me that he has now gotten it down through the same contractor that was gonna cost us $1.25 million, down to $150,000. He will pay the additional cleanup fee. And he has advised me to advise the taxpayers of this city, they will pay $0, as they were offered $0 on October 17th. Thank you.
All right, thanks, thank you, Mr. Zuko. I just want to clarify one thing. He
Yes.
did come in with the check, and I
Yes.
did tell him at that time that this wasn't the proper
Yes, you
way to
did.
do it, so
Absolutely
he,
did.
he knew how to do that.
Absolutely correct, you
But-
did.
Right, okay, thank you. Anybody else from council before I open it up to
Could
public?
I just, I didn't catch the total, last statement, you said Mr. Zibble about 150,000.
Yeah, he's called me today, because apparently no one wants to talk to him, that it's gonna cost him $150,000 from the same contractor, Empire, I believe it is. And it's gonna cost him approximately another $35,000 for the cleanup fee, which is already almost completed. Now, when he gave us the original agreement, I read it, it was gonna cost us, well, I'm sorry, it was gonna take 14 days from start to finish. We're way beyond that now. But anyway, that's the fee he has come up with.
And can the administration respond to, you know, the comments that were made, I'd like to, or you want to go, can we respond to Mr. Hirschman?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mr. Hirschman, you can stand or you can sit down again, but, go ahead.
Yeah, we have to,
Administration.
Mr. Hirschman.
Mr. Herschel, you might want to have a seat.
You might want to have a seat. And Mr. Zibble said you might want to have a seat.
Take a rest,
Yeah, obviously, Mr. Leitner, community, and on top of this, Mr. Leitner, please, point out the administration's, perspective on this whole issue.
All right, so first of all, I need to do a little clarification. When we talk about demolition, we all speak a different language. So when the public talks about demolition, when we talk about demolition, we need to understand the terminology that we use differs. So in the city by code, when we deal with the demolition, we have to do a demolition completely. So when we say demolition, we talk about tearing down the walls. If there's a basement, a foundation, we cave in the actual basement itself. We backfill. So when we do a demolition, that's what we call a base demolition, not to exclude the disconnection of utilities, which again, may not be an actual cost, but we also look at the fact that once we do that demolition, if there's hazardous materials in there, the disposal and the removal of the hazardous materials. So when we talk about demolition from our perspective, that's a base demolition for us. When we discussed this at the beginning, the base demolition, if we were just to knock that building down, do that base demolition, we had discussed it at the beginning that would be over $330-something thousand. Now, when we do that demolition, that debris has to go somewhere. We have to backfill, that's an additional cost. Then we have to separate the material. Again, if there's hazardous materials, metals, bricks, wood, we separate that into piles. So because when we have to dispose of that, it's easier for us to transport that debris. That's another cost. Once we finalize that, once we dispose of it and send it out, again, that's an additional cost. Once the actual lot is safe, not to count when we have to secure it with the fencing, and then once everything is removed, we have to backfill and do topsoil. That's another cost. So when we do a complete demolition, we look at making the entire area safe, and that if we can come back later, and if there needs to be development, we can develop or move forward. Now, we're comparing, we put everything out on the table of what we're doing. We broke it down by every item. With Mr. Hyman, we don't know what he broke down. We never saw what you have in front of you. The other thing with that, we've already knocked down the building. We already got the equipment out to the site. That's another cost where he's picking up something that we've already started. So again, we can't really compare apples to apples with what he's doing. And when we haul away debris, there's another cost to that as well. So we don't know how he's hauling away his debris. We don't know if he's actually doing it and taking it to which landfills or how he's breaking it up. So again, these are costs that we can't really compare his cost with our cost. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Hold on.
Yeah, he may be actually recycling some of those materials. Some of the materials, actually, the old beams have been out.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Quick question.
Mr. Green.
Thank you. Have you had the, I mean, Mr. Zuko spoke to him. Have the administration been speaking with him?
I will tell you that Mr. Wojcicki, sitting right here, he was out on site the day, that night. And then also when we started the demolition, Mr. Hyman came and stood right next to Mr. Wojcicki while we were demolishing our property. So it's not like he did not know what we were doing. And at that time, he could have actually offered, he could have said something, but he didn't say a word. He was in communication with us throughout this entire demolition process on another property. It's 333 Court Street. So this is not like he didn't know where we were. He had the opportunity to talk to us, and we actually communicated through our legal department because he is an LLC, and with him talking about that he was gonna have his attorneys, we as administration, we don't talk directly with them if they have legal counsel.
But did the council, our legal counsel speak to his legal counsel?
Yes, they did, and we have
Several times.
several times.
We
And we have,
have emailed trail.
yes, we
Because
do.
it sounds like nobody here has spoken to him, but that's not true.
We were advised, our legal department was advised through Mr. Hyman that his attorney would, I'll let that name not mention, they would be in contact, and our legal department, Frank Worth and the legal team have been in contact with his legal person.
So basically, lawyers were talking to lawyers in this, so it's not like it was all done in a vacuum.
No, not at all.
Right.
And Mr. Hyman has been out at site a few times while Mr. Wojcicki was out there doing the demolition, standing right next to him while the building is being demolished.
Okay, all right, thank you. Ms. Otto.
Mr. Hyman had gotten hold of me more than once. The administration had known about this. While I was on vacation, he emailed me. I responded by saying, I talked to legal, and I responded by saying, this is not a city council matter. I have nothing to say about this. There is no negotiations with me, and I held true to that. I think the administration, and I think Mr. Zuckel, what he was trying to do was getting council people to go along and try to negotiate where this has nothing to do with council, and I kept directing them. The fact that he called me, texted me, mailed me, same thing with you, I think this is what he was trying to do, and I understand the communication part, and I did tell him I will address this and see if there's communication, but as far as council's concerned, I just don't believe we have anything to do with this.
Other than appropriate.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Other than that, we do not do the negotiations, and I think this is what he was looking for.
Right. Mr. Ringer, please. All right. Were you done?
I'm done, thank you.
Okay. You okay?
I'm done, yeah.
All right. Lou, it's your turn.
Thank you, Mr. President. The question that I raised is, I asked you at one meeting about the 1.2. It was in concrete. You said it could go higher. The gentleman here from Community Development gave us a breakdown of the costs. What are the costs based on the contract that we received? I think he should spell that out to the council. And Ms. Ackley, it is your responsibility that you budget the money, and if you're gonna budget money, you gotta find out how it's gonna be spent. So it is your responsibility. I would like to know.
I think what she was saying is it's not our responsibility to do the negotiation with Mr. Hyman or his.
Agree with that.
Right, that's just to clarify.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But the problem is, all this has to be done, the gentleman just said, community development, I think should be presented to council, because Julio sponsored an amendment with the second, that we should not spend $200,000, and Mr. Hyman said he could do it for 200,000. So if he could do it for 200,000, we have to accept it, and if he could do what the gentleman said has to be done, we should thank him, not criticize him. And I think that he deserves a thank you. This building, he also has a lot of property there, so we should thank him. Now, I know you're saying it's his decision, but we're the ones that went on the hook and funded the money for 1.2. Maybe we moved too fast. We should have, talk
With all due respect, Mr. Hirschman, we had a building that was still burning for several days. So respectfully,
I agree with you, Darrell.
okay, then,
But the problem is-
Mr. Hyman was well aware of it. He was there the night it was burning, and he was standing aside of our fire chief, who told him the building had to be demolished. It's time for him to put his big boy pants on and own up that he was responsible for demolition and didn't do anything about
Have
it.
you talked to him? Mr. Zuko talked to him? If he, I mean, we're big fans.
I did not. Again, it's not my place to talk to him. Those people responsible did talk to him, and all of a sudden he disappeared for several days.
You know the governing body of the city of Valentine is? You know
I
who the
sure
governing
do.
body of the city of Valentine is?
Yes,
That's you.
that's correct.
So you have an opportunity then to get involved with it.
But we don't negotiate contracts. We don't negotiate when there's people
Who said you
responsible for it.
negotiate the contract? You should ask who's gonna accept the responsibility.
Mr. Hirschman, if I can interrupt here. When legal counsel from the city is dealing with legal counsel from them, we are not gonna get involved, and we cannot get involved. Am I correct, Mr. Holt?
It's not that you can or can't, it maybe is best put, but it's not prudent to get
Not
involved.
a smart idea to do.
It's not prudent to get you involved.
Right.
Same as Mr. Holbert said, that the perimeter's on a bond issue, and I think he's wrong. When somebody comes and tells you it's a 4% interest, and now it's 5% interest, the parameters are changed, so council can get involved with the bond issue. I think Mr. Holbert.
We're on Bill 74, Lou, that's
I know,
all right.
You wanna get 3 minutes.
I agree with Mr. Zuko. I had the same conversations with Mr. Hyman. He initially had a higher price to do this 150 job, and he got it knocked down to 150. We went too fast on this. I'm sorry, we did. And instead, Darrell, shaking your head at everything said about Hyman. Why shake your head at everything Nat says? That's all you do is shake your head at Nat, okay?
Because I can't
Instead,
believe you're still
instead we should have
defending
had conversation between Mr. Hyman and the administration, and Mr. Hyman was available to talk to them. I know his phone number, I can call him, sure as heck Ray could have called him, Mr. McMahon could have called him.
It was
and this-
for phone
He can't
calls.
dial?
Huh?
He can't dial a phone?
He tried, he came in here to council.
No, days later.
Yeah, many days later.
This is wrong, the city has handled this totally wrong. If this was such
In
an.
your opinion.
If this was such an emergency, why was the building still standing 1 week later?
It was actively being demolished.
Wait, if it had to be demolished in 1 day, why wasn't it done? It was sitting there 1 week later, and you appropriated all this money to get it done. It wasn't done. Instead of pointing fingers at Nat, why don't you try working with a guy?
Thank you.
I have a solution to the problem. Instead of one party and the second party and arguing, I say the money that was appropriate, that's not being used, should go to the taxpayers and not increase the taxes. And that money, since it's not gonna be used, it's not gonna go where it was, they could find it, tax relief for their residents. Right there's the money. Let's go.
Thank you. Anybody
Right,
else?
Mr. Holmes.
Anybody else from the public?
Before I go home. I just want to echo what Mr. Hendrick was saying. The building was on fire. Get in a car accident on the freeway, right? You can Monday morning, is that what it's called, Monday morning quarterbacking? It's 20/20 hindsight, and go, wow, we could have got a cheaper tow truck, take my car to a tow yard that's way closer to my house. And for that matter, we didn't have to use that many flares. You know what happens when somebody tries to help on an accident and they're not a professional? A woman tried that this week on Halloween, and she was hit and killed. I mean, like, the city has to do things a little bit differently than just your average Joe. And it doesn't absolve Mr. Hyman from the responsibility that, yeah, could he insure that building? Maybe not. Did he have to have no electricity and therefore no alarms on that building? No, he's not absolved from that. It was a tragedy. We're not gonna go back to the explosion that rocked our community and Monday morning quarterback that. Did everybody handle things the right way? Maybe not. And apologies will be made when it's appropriate time to make them, but let's stop dragging each other. Let's stop dragging each other. The building was on fire, that's true. It was not properly secured, that's true. Were things rushed into? Maybe, but that's what happens when you have a car accident on the freeway. You call the closest tow truck, and the closest tow truck that's available will take the car off the freeway and you pay for it. So I'm sorry, but like, you know, I'm with you. I'm with the mayor here. The building's on fire. It was a safety hazard. Kids were trying to get into it. Thanks for your service, guys. Have a great night.
Thanks. Anybody else from the public on Bill 74?
Hold on, if I could just.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lightfoot. Okay, hold on, come on, guys.
I just want everyone, even in the audience, to understand that you guys have entrusted us, that we do have the city's best interest in mind. Every time I make a decision, it's about saving money. It's not about, and it's about the safety of the people. And when we made these decisions, it was about an immediate hazard, an immediate safety hazard that we had to take care of. So we are always looking at what's the best way to save money. We're not trying to go out here and find the most expensive person. That $1.25 million, according to our current contract, for our current demolition contract, this is how you all need to understand. Even our current contractor that does demolition, Penmar, he came to us in earnest and honesty, saying that if I were to do this project, it's gonna cost you $1.25 million based off the current contract, because demolition buys square footage. Now, he even helped us. He even said to the point, like, I will help you find some other demolition contractors. We looked for other demolition contractors that had the equipment that's needed. We're talking the crane, we're talking them to get on site within 24 hours because the fire's still active. These are things that Hyman has not taken into account, that when you need something on an emergency and you have to bring heavy equipment across from Reading or even from Philadelphia, that's another cost that's involved. So again, we did what we can, not even utilizing our current contractor, because he said, this is out of my scope and I don't want to charge the city more money that's needed. Let me help you find someone else. And that's what we did. So for anyone who's out there saying that we didn't take the time or we rushed into this, we did not. So we'll leave it at that, but from the future, we always look to find the best solution to the problem.
And Sunday night at the fire, Steve Scrappis, the contractor he just mentioned, told me he could not do the building. And he said he would get on the phone while the building was burning that night and start to call contractors in Philadelphia and other places where he did.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody else from the public on Bill 74? Come up, if you're gonna talk on it, come on up here.
Buenas noches, everybody.
Your name, sir?
No sé muy bien hablar inglés, pero Juan, que me trae buscado.
Oh, Julio, can you help? Tell him to give us his name.
El nombre suyo y la dirección.
Mi nombre es Julio Moreno.
His name is Julio Moreno, not to be confused with Julio Guridi.
Tengo 20 años viviendo aquí, en Allentown.
He's been living in Allentown for 20 years.
40 años de mi papá en paz descanse, que transmitió que vine yo aquí a Allentown. Son 60.
So 40 years and 40 years, ¿de qué él lo aprende
O sea,
ahí?
a la cuenta que los conocimientos de él me lo transmitió a mí.
No, that his father was living here for 40 years and he has the same knowledge, or his father gave him the knowledge of living in this country. So that's 60 years, 40 for him and 20 for
Y he ayudado a diferentes, estoy ayudando
He has been helping
a diferentes comunidades de todos los países
different communities of different countries
en el deporte,
in sports.
pero que no veo mejora donde jugamos en el parque.
He's talking about something else. So I'm gonna tell you, usted está hablando de otra cosa, ¿ok? Estamos hablando solamente de esto ahora,
de eso.
del fuego. ¿Tiene algo que decir sobre el fuego?
Sobre el fuego, yo hice curso de fuego
No,
también,
tiene algo que decir sobre el fuego.
pero referente a eso y lo que están hablando diferentes
In
personas,
reference to the fire,
él tiene diferentes propiedades.
he has different properties. He's talking about Jaime. So
Yo quiero tener una
he wants to have a property too,
que me ha pasado 3 veces
that he's being,
por diferentes dueños que han tenido 40, 50 casas y han venido abusando.
no, eso no tiene nada que ver con eso.
No.
No tiene nada que ver con
Pero-
eso. He's talking about something totally different. Tiene que esperar para que hable con él, porque tenía la oportunidad de hablar ahorita, como yo le dije, y usted no vino. Ok, le dice courtesy of the floor. Okay. Ahí
Que
tenía que hablar.
no es dable, como digo, ¿cierto? Que se ayuda.
Es todo diferente. Usted no puede hablar de esto, de otra cosa, tiene que hablar de esto solamente ahora.
De eso.
Pero usted no está hablando de eso ahora.
Ahorita, que no es dable que se proceda, ¿no? Que se proceda a la ayuda del fuego que hubo.
Hablamos ahorita, pero no tiene nada que ver con eso ahora.
No.
No, porque usted está hablando de que no se proceda, ya hablamos en eso.
He's out of town.
Okay, we're done.
Yes, okay, thank you. Anybody else from the public? About Bill 74 as amended.
It's not been amended, it's the vote on the amendment.
We need to vote on the amendment, right. We're still talking on the amendment. Okay, so
So I think there was an agreement between Mr. Julio and the administration to amend the amendment, and instead of,
The way it's written is different.
yeah, so what Mr. Greedy, I think, wanted to do, what they were gonna do is you were gonna restore some accounts and then restore other accounts into the unappropriated balance, and they have a list of the accounts. So that would amend this amendment, and they can tell you what account.
So it'll be about $400,000 restored to that other account, those accounts.
There will be, yeah, exactly, about 415,000 would be restored to the departments.
You have the list of the accounts.
I have them.
Bring it up here, easier.
Yes.
You may approach the dais, sir.
All right, so the counts are, the mayor's office, other contracted services, $3,000. Out of the law department, other services and charges, the 50 account, $28,000. Finance, the 46, the 50, and, which bureau is?
That's right, Finance Administration.
Finance Administration, also the 46 accounts, 5,000, 15,000, 75,000. Printing account, 26 account out of Bureau 4, $2,000. Public Works, their training and professional development, 34 account, $2,000. 46 account, other contracting services, $25,000. 34 account, which bureau? Streets, 34 account, $1,000. Streets, 46 account, $3,000. Police bureau.
Yeah, that'd be the main police.
Main police budget, 34 account. Return only $10,000 to there. Their uniform account, 56 account, return $10,000 to there. The refunds, does that say return?
Yes.
The 90 account, return $6,000 against the police budget. Fire, nothing. Human Resources, their publications membership, 32 account, $2,000. 34 account, training professional development, 8,500. Equipment, 72, 1,500. IT departments, repairs and maintenance, 42 account, 25,000. Other contracting services, 46 account, 125,000. Anything out in parks?
Yeah, I don't think there's, neither of the parks work, you didn't have a return on either of those.
Correct, they didn't need any of it.
Okay, so you can straight to CD.
Community and economic development, what's 901 Bureau?
That's the main department.
So CD administration, rentals, 30 account, 5,000. The 40 account, which is civic expenses, $50,000. 902 zoning, their 46 account, other contract services, $10,000, and their 34 account, training professional development, $3,000, are all the ones we were returned. And those would be the accounts.
Yes.
So, those are the accounts, and then that totals up to 450,000.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
And then back to the,
So we're back to the amendment.
well, hold on a second, 306, so people know what we're doing.
Well, he just read it all.
You understand, everybody? I understand it, so if you understand it, yeah, if you understand it, then that's okay.
Yeah, he read it as the record, because Juana's gonna have to type this up then.
It's recorded. Make sure Julio gets a copy.
Did the fire department, I said nothing for the fire department, they gave nothing, so they're getting nothing back?
No.
They put the fire out.
Thanks, guys.
So we will need another motion to fix that amendment.
I make a motion.
And second?
I'll take it.
So that is now part of the amendment, all those accounts.
And that motion, right, okay.
Just vote on it now, right?
You will vote on the amendment, and then we're going to vote on the final bill.
Okay, let's vote.
Okay, on the amendment as amended, is everybody ready?
Right here.
Ms. Mona?
Yes.
Mr. Zuko?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Ms. Zappa?
Say yes to almost anything now. Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Now we move to the bill.
As amended.
As amended.
Bill itself as amended, Ms. Mona?
Yes.
Mr. Zuko?
Yes.
McLean?
No.
Ms. Zappa?
You just did, now, I am voting for everything you just read about the money going back to those departments, correct?
Right.
The whole, right, yes.
Mr. Greedy?
Yes.
And Mr. Henricks?
Yes.
Mr. President, yeas.
All right, thank you very much. We're moving to resolutions for final passage. R-126, please.
R-126 is a sewage planning module for development in Harrison Street and South Fourth Street.
Mr. Messinger, our sewage expert. We have capacity, correct?
Yes, we have capacity.
Thank you so much. Anything else from the administration other than sewage?
What's wrong?
Okay. Mr. Hanlon, if you would call the vote.
Mr. Zuko?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Zappa?
Yes.
Greedy?
Yes.
Henricks?
Yes.
Mona?
Yes.
Thank you very much. R-127, please.
R-127 adopts the Lehigh Valley 2018 Hazard Mitigation Plan update.
Thank you very much. Anything from the administration? Anything from council? Anything from the public?
Hold on a second. Where's the plan?
It's a renewal.
I don't know, it's up there.
Mr. Messinger, do you want to?
I don't know what it is, I don't know what I'm voting on.
And our guest appearance?
I don't know what I'm voting on. I don't know what I'm something I don't know what I'm voting on.
I think I worked on the plan, that's why I'm kind of here. Really, it's just a renewal of what we did
5 years prior and 5 years prior to that. You can actually find it on, it's been publicized, it's on Lehigh Valley Planning Commission.org, hazard analysis. What it does is just identifies, it makes us eligible to get grants for hazard mitigation. So if we had an area that, say, Adams Island flooded all the time, and we wanted to try to get a grant to buy those houses out to make it a park, kind of like we did with Barnes Street a long time ago. That's what this hazard mitigation plan and adopting this actually does. The other thing that they actually put into this rendition of the plan is actually they added the opioid crisis as well as insect-borne illnesses and that type of thing with the tick-borne illnesses. So we can actually apply for grant funding that actually helps your community and preparedness part of it to get funding as well through that.
Okay, so this get funded, we're not committing any money ourselves.
That's right. That's just saying we're resolving it, and we roll with the county and we roll over it.
Perfect, thank you.
Literally, we could lose money if we didn't pass this.
Right.
And this is done every 5 years, correct?
That's right.
So Julio, you should approve 4 before.
It's okay, it's okay. But it's okay, you gotta know why it's okay.
And the update part of it was really adding the opioid as well as some of the other.
That's what good government is, you gotta know what you're voting on.
That's true.
Some of us that are homework. Mr. Campbell, please, let's get out of here.
All right, Mr. Zuko.
Yes.
Mr. McLean.
Yes.
Ms. Zappa.
Yes.
Mr. Reedy.
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks.
Yes.
And Ms. Moore.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ordinances for introduction. Bill 75, please.
Bill 75 is the vacation of East Edge Street along the northern portion of East Edge Street and the southern boundary of 1047 to 1050 North Irving Street.
Mr. Zuko, that will go to you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Bill 76, please.
Renaming a portion of Wall Street between Hamilton and Walnut, Mayor Rustin Webb.
Mr. Zuko, that'll be yours also.
Thank you.
Bill 77.
Bill 77 adopts the general fund, administrative order fund, risk management fund, debt service fund, equipment fund, and the GOP fund.
That will go to all of us. Bill 78, please.
This adopts the liquid fuels fund.
That will go to all of us also.
Bill 79 adopts the E911 fund.
Again, ditto.
Bill 80 adopts the Trexler fund.
Again,
Bill 81 adopts the solid waste fund and the solid waste fee.
everybody.
Bill 83 adopts the stormwater fund and the stormwater fee.
Entire council.
Bill 83 adopts, adjusts the Departments of Parks and Recreation.
We'll send that to Parks and Recreation. Ms. Moda. Okay, thank you. A resolution for introduction.
Maybe Adrian was sticking around to speak.
I saw something here that.
He left. He left. That's for the
Change in the street.
change in the street. Where was it? Oh, Bill 76. Yeah, that's gone to Mr. Zukel's. So that's just a bill of support. New business.
Oh, yeah.
I'll read it. I'll do R128, adopts the capital improvement program.
Oh, yeah, that'll go to all of us. New business, Ms. Appa has about 4 things.
Yes.
Can I give my other article for you?
No. Just a reminder, Monday night I asked for some dollar figures for those positions as well as on the PowerPoint, if we could get those before the meeting next Wednesday.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else new business? Seeing nobody. Good and welfare. Seeing nobody. Motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wrap. 9:47.